Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LARP Tales podcast, the award-winning LARP podcast where we tell our stories through live action roleplay. My name is Oliver. I'm one half of your hosting duo, and sitting next to me once again is my co-host Robyn. Hey, Robyn.
Hey, Oliver.
How you doing? How'd you like those fancy new mics we have?
Yeah, the fancy new mics are pretty cool.
Yeah. We'll discuss new equipment. We got new fancy new toys. But we're here today to recap, retell our time at Menhirs Fate, which is a brand new festival LARP here in the UK. Before we get into that, though, just the usual housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already. If you're listening on an audio platform like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. Go check out the links for ways to support us. If you want to, you're of course under no obligation to do so. And with all that out of the way, let's get into our recap of Menhirs Fate, Event 1, Year 1. Let's go. Yes, we are. Yes, no. Yes, we are doing that. With my new roadcaster, we have sound effects. There we go. We're not going to do sound effects, okay? I'm probably going to put something on board. I'm probably going to put the theme tune at some point.
Yeah, that could be quite cool, actually.
But it's our new piss. Our new piss. Our new piss.
I distinctly told Matt that Piss LARP is not making it into the podcast.
Piss LARP.
He said, I want Piss LARP to make it into this podcast episode.
Yeah, so we'll get to Piss LARP.
Oh God.
But anyway, yes, new festival LARP, E1, Year 1. We were pretty quick out the gates. I discovered like my PID is like 123, which is really easy to remember. Yeah. I don't know how I got in so early because yours was like way higher.
124.
Were you 124?
I was 124. I didn't read the right thing, so we were like in line trying to like sort out PIDs, and I read the wrong thing, thinking that I was way higher. But I mean, like, it's a bit of a joke that our PIDs for likes of Empire, there's one person got in between us, so I'm kind of a little bit gutted that I'm not 125 and someone didn't just swoop in there.
Yeah, well, that's because I was too keen to LARP, and you were like, you took us a convincing, so that there's a little story to that. Those PIDs. But anyway, brand new LARP, Menhirs Fate. It's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of discussion about it as well. We'll be honest, it was people were tentative, weren't they? People were tentative. We'll get into how it met our expectations in a bit as we start talking about it. I was definitely, when I was first told about it, another thing as well I'm going to say is that this isn't a review of this isn't going to be us like reviewing in a way of like, it was good, it was bad, it was this. This is not really what we do on this podcast anyway. We'll obviously give our opinions, but this project is like owned and ran by a myriad of people that are like go from like friends to close friends, right? So have been involved in this. So yeah, we the people that we like very much are involved in running this game, and they have friends of friends, are involved in the running of this game as well. So we are not completely like unbiased in that way.
No, definitely not. But I think like you're right with what you're saying, is that we're going to do kind of what we normally do, where we're going to chat about our own experiences and what we genuinely enjoyed and so on, and basically just talk about the story that we ended up creating at this event, which I think in itself will probably feedback to let you know how much we liked it.
Yeah, when we were coming up to the event, a year previous, I had been told this game is going to be a PvE game, whereas Empire is a PvP P-game, it's going to appeal to more like the TikTok generation, where it's going to be a bit more like, it's going to be a little more like D&D, a little bit more lighthearted when it comes to like the world building, a little bit more fantastical. And then when we got a lot closer to the event and we started getting like things like nations and things like that, I was just surprised that they did nations at all.
Yeah.
Because that's what Empire does the best, is their nations. I think it worked out. I think it worked out great. But that I think that was my only like worry going into it, was like, I hope this isn't just going to be an attempt at, oh, this is how I would do Empire but my way, you know.
Yeah, whereas it's and like you said, like a couple of weeks before the event, it was starting to feel that way, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, we'll get into it anyway. So the event is held in Bedfordshire in England, so a little bit more of a drive for us, wasn't it? From Empire. We will talk about also, I'm just going to mention it here because there's not too much to say. Empire Profound Decisions have made it public that their new site, where it is, what it is, you can go online and check it out. It's actually not far away from where Menhirs is now based. So this kind of trip over to like Bedfordshire is going to be a common thing for us. But anyway, it was at like a festival site, wasn't it?
Yeah, like a proper like music festival site, if that makes sense. And the whole site was geared up for festivals. I'm pretty sure that's all they do there all year round, is festival after festival after festival.
Yeah, it wasn't like a working farm like Empire's held at. So the ground is like extremely well drained, and it's just completely flat as well as you can see for miles. And it was hilarious. We as we drove in, it's just acres and acres of just nothing, and obviously so they had they're doing like a spoke system. Now we spoke about this to Matt P like 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
2 years ago we spoke to Matt P, right, on the podcast, and we were talking about what they would want from like an Empire site and how you would do like the camp plan. This isn't Empire's idea or Menhir's idea or my idea. I think they do this in like Bickerleen and most other big places. It just makes sense. So you have like your central hub of the camp, and then where you have like your nations or your guilds or whatever, you're going to have your groups. That they go out like in spokes around the center. So basically, you never run out of space because you just keep chucking people out the back. Basically, so that was the setup that they had here for their nation. So they had these. We'll get into like the teepee. They had these teepees which were amazing. But as we drove in, there's just so much space, and we're just not used to that. With Empire, we drove in, there was so much room to put things. And it was hilarious. I was like, well, we could, I ironically said, oh, like, there's no space. Anyway, they were like, right, okay. I was like, where should we put our tent? And they were like, oh, we kind of need to put it here. We had to like try and we were like squeezing our tent into like.
We were sitting there like, trying to make this work, and we're putting it into this tiny little space, even though there's like acres of land there. And it kind of like, it took us a minute to be like, wait a minute, we can just put it there. Like,
well,
right
we were trying to make it work because basically,
we
because I think what they had up and down the nations, they wanted a main road in the nations.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we'll talk about a lot is the camp attacks. So they had camp wasn't a safe place. You had camp attacks. It was and it wasn't. I
it's the safest you wanted it to be, basically.
yeah. So
you were in control there.
Yeah. So they wanted enough space, obviously, to get out character, get like vehicles up and down if they needed to, but also, enough space for things like camp attacks to happen and whatnot.
So we were able to actually get there on the Thursday this time, which was good for this time.
This time.
Well, the thing is, for a while it was looking like we were going to have to arrive on the Friday, and which I was kind of nervous about, with it especially being like the first, obviously the first one. So we were able to get there on the Thursday and get set up and everything.
It's not a game that runs on Thursday, so it's like Empire. If you've heard us talk about Empire, it's Friday. It's exactly the same times.
Yeah.
So it's Friday from 6 until Sunday at 3. I think that was what we're saying.
Yeah.
And then Thursday is a day you can just show up if you want to just hang out and camp and things like that. They're pretty much they pretty much borrowed the same rules. It seems to work for Empire.
The only difference is you buy your Thursday ticket online. So instead of having to hand over like cash when you arrive at the event, you just purchase it online, and that way you can drive on a Thursday. It's nice and easy.
Yeah. So they had all like I said, all the nations were around a central hub. So there's no permanent buildings, but they managed to get these like teepees, which were amazing, weren't they?
They were huge, and they really worked well, especially for this, like you said, this central hub, making it all nice and circular, and it made it really easy to always find, what you were looking for. So the hub was made up of several big teepees, and they each had their own purpose and their own reason for being there. So we had the big bar and everything there, which strangely enough, I didn't actually end up in the bar at all.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware whether it was like a functioning bar during the game, was it?
I think it was. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it was. It was a really good setup anyway, because they did have a decent like big bar setup. And then
well, anyway, they had the we'll fire through them because we'll talk about them in
we'll fire
depth.
through all they are. Yeah.
So they had the bank.
Mm-hmm.
They had the Court of Daggers tent, the Adventurers Guild tent, and I guess the Menhir tent, right? Am I missing one?
Thieves Guild was the Court of Daggers, right?
No, you got Treasure Hunters Guild. There we go.
That was it.
Treasure Hunters Guild, right? So, so I mean, you're pretty much. We'll go through them, but you pretty much got your Thieves Guild, your Assassins Guild, your Adventurers Guild, whatever they still call the Adventurers
very
Guild.
D&D like, basically. We had all your different guilds and your bank and your bar right in the middle, and you had a nice clear view of this from no matter where you were. So very useful if you're like, late at night and whatever else, you get separated from everyone. It was so easy just to see this big central hub.
Yeah, and they had the toilets as well. It's funny, a few people said, it's a pain because I can't see the toilets from a distance, but also for immersion, I've got to admit, I'm not a big fan of portaloos in the back of my LARP photos or in the back of my LARP. So they had like canvas over them, which I think worked great. We talked about piss LARP just now. So funnily enough, we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, the funny thing is we had. Oh no, am I going to get caught out now? How many nations?
9.
It's 8, 9.
I thought it was 9.
No, it's 9. Yeah, there is 9. Yeah, sorry.
It's 3 groups of 3.
That's right. Yeah. So the nations are all in like realms, and there's 3 in each realm. We'll get into that. We start talking about the in-character stuff. But they just positioned, like I said, like spokes of a wheel. They just positioned each like section of 3 nations together. Yeah. So we were in Valdraith and Cyridonia with like the larger nations, and we were like, but obviously the bigger the nation, the longer the spoke was, basically. And because there was so much space, everyone had loads of room. But people weren't like spreading out, which was the idea. It was the fact that you were going along. So we ended up, as the game will continue, nations will even out. But obviously, there was like 2 or 3 like really popular nations that just had their end of their camp was so much further than some of the others, which was like 2 or 3 tents.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things I was really, really excited for. Was you hear these stories about Empire in its first year and its first event and what it was like, and I've seen camp plans of like Dawn. I think I saw one for E2 of year 1.
Yeah, the E2 camp plan was shared not long ago, actually, and it's so crazy. I mean, like we're here at Menhirs, and like there's a little part of me that's like, oh my gosh, like one day I'll be able to be like, we were there at the first event. Yeah, I mean, the wonder was just a few tents, and I look at them.
When the wonder was 3 tents, and where Kairos was just literally like a fake glory square. We'll get into that. So we had all the teepees up. The lights was the other thing as well, which was amazing. I'm not entirely sure whether they use those lights for festivals or not. But the lighting was just perfect.
Yeah, they had everything lit up, but it wasn't immersion breaking. And this was like obviously a big help for just like going around at night. Like, I mean, like, I'm sure like lots of people listening that would have been at these sort of events where you maybe don't feel too comfortable walking about at night because it's dark and you're by yourself. This LARP though, I was like, back onto piss LARP again. I was quite happy just to head off by myself because everything was lit up. It just it felt safer being so lit up. But there are these like little bulbs all over the place, and they just
They look like stars, don't they?
yeah, they looked like stars. It was just so perfect. A lot of people were actually bringing it into in character, speaking about these lights and about how they looked like different constellations and things, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, no, having it lit up at all times was but not like harsh like lights like we did with the Glory Square that 1 year.
That 1 year
where it looked like a football stadium. Yeah. Apparently, it being a festival site, I think what we were told was that we had like professional security there. The security comes with the site basically, and there was definitely a vibe of they didn't know what we were all there for because they were obviously like they were treating us like we were festival goers. So quite a different vibe from it is a LARP, a fest LARP, right? But it's not a music festival, so they they're used to people bringing like real drugs in and people doing just stupid things like real life violence and things like that. And obviously there was not that many people here at this first event compared to like tens of thousands they might get at a festival or something, but they were very strict on obviously who they were letting in. They were strict with the times, with like bringing cars on. So that was one thing. It was a massive open field, and we're used to like the up and down muddy like kind of wood chip roads of Empire and any other all the other lots we've been to. You just kind of just crack on, but no, they were like, no, you have to go this way, and you have to be on at this time and off at this time. We were lucky because we got there at like 7, and they were like, we're not letting any other vehicles on until 8, so.
Yeah, I think that was like the only kind of like hiccup at the start where there was a few issues with security. Those of you that are in the Discords would have seen, there was issues getting in with security letting people in at the start. There was the what time vehicles could be on and off the field, because I think it was just a bit of that. I don't know if it was miscommunication or not, but there was a little bit of confusion of, because we got there and we were like told, okay, no more vehicles are allowed to move on the field from 8. We're like, it's 8 now, we're unpacking the van, so I guess we'll just have a few beers because we can't move the car off and we'll just shut it down for the night like you would do at Empire. And then we were told, oh no, they all now need to be off the field by 10.
You need to get them off
and
the
we're
field.
Like, okay, right, cool. So
I mean, it's a small quibble. I mean, again, we've got proper security there, which is a bonus, I guess.
I definitely felt like if something did happen,
you're kind of hoping that randoms don't just kind of start wandering in. Although there was like a few like dog walkers, like on the Sunday, wasn't there? Just which I didn't get. I'm like, so hang on, like it's like the top level security. You won't let you're being really anal about letting certain people in and out. And then on Sunday, there's like a random like dog walker, like walking.
Yeah, there was a couple of dog walkers like in the field. I think a few horses kind of turned up at one point.
That was like right at the top, wasn't it?
But that was it was like obviously they would have been coming down from like the main farm, if that makes sense, and then you would just like end up going into random fields and but like.
It could have been a landowner that was.
Could have been, yeah.
That was walking
but like
around.
that was like the only like the security sort of thing was the only slight hiccup, and that's not a big thing because really. Having decent professional security there. We kept joking though because like obviously in LARP and especially like at Empire and stuff you get fake drugs, and we were joking about how somebody needs to brief security on the fact that we're actually none of us are on any drugs. We're talking about pretend things.
Well, I was told by people on crew side that they were told like, by the way, there might be people acting weird, as in like like role play effects and things like that. Like there might be people so that and throughout the entire event we no one really had an interaction with them, did they? Apart from getting vehicles on and off, but like you said, a slight kind of like that's something they can work on, or if they might be at a different site at some point. The security came with the site, or whatever. So that's fine. I mean, what else do we want to say about Thursday? There's not really too much to say about
Not really
Thursday,
too much to say. We had a fun Thursday night. We got to see a load of people. We got to have a few drinks, and we got to also have our first look at the Menhir on the Thursday night, because they actually set everything up so that everybody there on the Thursday night was able to go and just basically see some of the cool things that they've been working on.
Yeah. So the Menhir is this big. It's basically a big stone. We talked about it with Kitty, didn't we? On
yeah. Kitty went into a lot of detail about it.
Podcast that we did with her, so you go check that out if you're interested in the kind of behind the scenes of the Menhir. But what they had done, so the Menhir is like it's kind of the magic is a bit like kind of ley liney and things like that. So they basically got a big stone. It's a bit like, it's a bit like a stone a hendra, isn't it? Right? That's the idea
that
of
kind of style, if you like.
Go on. Are you gonna describe it?
Yeah. So they had that sort of like this like huge stone. It was in the center of this teepee, and around the outside of it, what they had is like a clear mesh dropped all the way around the outside, and then they had projectors all around the ground, which were hidden within their own stone-like boxes. And the projectors were projecting all the visuals onto the actual stone itself. There was also audio as well. It wasn't on the Thursday, but there was audio going to be coming with this. And as we watched as they were clearly like doing a bit of a loop of all the different things that you could expect to see.
Yeah.
So the magic, there's all different types of magic, if you like. For example, you've got your kind of like more like fire type, if you like, and you could clearly tell when that was getting put onto the Menhir.
It's basically their ritual. It's a ritual site. It's like a ritual circle type thing that you do ritual magic around.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and what was also really cool is that it actually dissipated off of the rock into the entire teepee itself. So when you walked in, it felt like you were walking into something and you were surrounded. I think that was a happy accident.
Oh no, I was told it was a happy accident. Yeah,
because it really cool.
Yeah, in the teepee, it gave like a planetarium vibe, which was was quite fun. We're describing it now because neither of us did any ritual magic, so that was the only time we saw it.
I took a little video on the Thursday of it, just showing a couple of my favorite little bits that were coming up on it, because it was just so beautiful.
Yeah, it was really cool.
What was really funny though is that we kind of got there and it was like the Thursday and we're having a few drinks, a few people, and everyone's like, "Do you want to come and see the rock?" And we're like,
"Yeah." I was like,
"Okay, sure, we'll come and see a rock." They undersold the rock.
Yeah,
we got there. We were there for a good 20 minutes.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I did not expect that at all. I honestly thought the Menhir. I thought it was going to be a prop, which it was, but I thought it was just going to just be stood in the middle of the center part. So in character, the area is called Haven. So we'll talk about Havens. This is what we're talking about. Haven is that and all the camp around it. So everything that happens in camp around that is Haven. So I thought that the Menhir was just going to be a stone just stuck in the middle of Haven. I didn't quite realize that was going to be their like ritual magic thing. And it's so funny when it was started changing color and we're all just like sat there on the Thursday night. I remember saying to a couple of people, I was like, this is how starved LARPers are of production value, because even just it went from a red light to a blue light, and we were all like losing our shit because we were just
it was so cool.
Lights,
I'm glad I didn't actually go in during the event because I didn't do any magic stuff. Yeah. Did you have a peek in? I watched listen to kind of, because I knew they had like sounds and things with it as well, which I think would have been quite cool to kind of go in and witness. So we basically then headed back off to our camp. We had a really cool little setup. We had a nice little mini courtyard bit, but one of our group members, Georgia, who has been on the podcast, is actually there as nation support. So we had our fun little nation support area to go and sleep in at night, because what they did is they had all the nation support camped in the same sort of area, if you like, so they were easy to find. So yeah, that was our Thursday.
Yeah. So Friday, we may as well speak about like what we decided game wise on our characters and things like that. So a brief kind of overview. I did pretty much the same as I did for Empire with this. I didn't do tons of research. I quite enjoy coming at it, especially I think it's more interesting as well when we come on the podcast and talk about it from this angle.
Yeah.
Because people really struggle to access LARP when there's lots of information and they feel out of their depth and things like that. So I always like to be like, no, I came in and I didn't read a lot of the wiki. So there is a wiki. People know my feelings on wikis. I understand it's the best way to have a kind of live document of your game, you know. But yeah, so I didn't read up on all the lore. Again, like I've got friends that have worked on this game and written different parts of the lore. I knew different things about the game, about the story, without even reading the wiki, from what people have told me over the past year or so. Anyway, so I had a vague understanding of the different nations. So the basic premise, and this is this is my jam. Like this whole like PvE. We are the good guys and we're fighting against the bad guys. I like that. I like that jam. It's very Tolkien-esque. So basically, there's these nations. We've all come to this place called Haven that the gods have created for us, and we're fighting against the corruption, right? So really straightforward. Like
nice and easy. We've got this common enemy. That is what we're all fighting against, and that's why we're all there. We all want to be there, and we all want to succeed as like all of us together. You know,
we're fighting the corruption. So we decided to go for the nation of Valdraith, which when we say Valdraith, people who know Menhirs Fate will laugh because it's very like typecast for us. It's very similar to Dawn and Empire it's based. I think it's a little bit of a mix between Barishka and Dawn in Empire.
Yeah. People are calling it Goth Dawn.
But it wasn't really like.
I didn't feel like that because the thing is the brief though. Okay, so this is obviously the briefs are written and everything, but how it actually is played out by the players that will change over time. Yeah. And it was very written as it was a darker place, and you know the people have been through hard times, and you know. That is how they act. We got there and everyone's like, "Hey, how are we doing? It's a beautiful day, right?"
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, actually, but that felt more organic, and so really quickly, the entire nation started just being a bit more of a brighter, optimistic nation, which is not how it was written, but. It was fun. It was fun to be part of.
That's and what the players do is what's important. I think over time, the nations will get their identities. So, yeah, Valdraith pretty much you're pretty much it's very much Grey Warden, isn't it? From Dragon Age, it's got a very like Ferelden in Dragon Age type thing. It's not really grimdark, but it's like a bit of Arthurian. The dagging we'll get to. Dagging. So yeah, it's basically like a Dawn but a bit darker, you know. Dawn, but maybe the romance is toned down a bit. But it's our type of jam, you know. If you want to play like, you know, a Dark Souls night or something like that, this is the kind of nation for you. We had with us in our realm, I guess, the Wonder and Avaro. Avaro was supposed to be like the Hobbits, right? Like that type of vibe was going on. The Wonder is basically the difference between Avaro and Valdraith. They're just more magical.
Yeah.
Very small nation though this time. So
very whimsical.
Yeah, it's supposed to be magic-y, you know. This was one thing. I think the Wonder. We could talk about this for hours. Even just we could do a whole podcast just on what I think about like the nations just from this one event. I will say that the Wonder was a really good concept, and in the concept art is really cool for like the actual geographical place, the Wonder, and because it's all like it's very fey, right? It looks very fey.
Yeah.
Had like mushrooms and things like that, but then they were like saying to people, "Oh, but you can't be mushroom people." They're like, "Here's a cool mushroom nation, but don't be mushrooms."
I feel that after this first event, because the Wonder was clearly like it seemed to be the smallest nation there.
Yeah,
I think they had like 3 like fighters, combat people
that
in the
was
whole
quite
nation,
funny.
which was really funny because they held their ground.
Yeah.
But I do feel that now after this first event, I think more people are going to go over to the Wonder because the way it played out was really great. The people in there were
Yeah.
amazing. They did a really good job at making their camp look different
Mm.
from other camps. They had a beautiful big sign of, you know, welcome to the wonder. The way they had put it together was very, very whimsical. And I was like, actually, they've really done a good job here.
Yeah.
And they were great fun to fight alongside.
Yeah. I think obviously again it's the earliest of days. So Empire has been around for like over 10 years, 12
Yeah.
12 in world, not in world, 12 real world years, you know, because of COVID and all that. And like obviously when you walk into like Dawn Camp, to League Camp, there's loads of people there, and they've developed this like this is us expressing our personality through our camp and our set dressing. You walk around Menhir's Fate currently, you could be in you could really be in a nation. You mentioned the Wonder. I think Krios was the other one that I was like, oh, we're in Krios, because they made a big deal of like the amphitheater and things like that.
They did that.
Yeah.
And then Morgalis did a really good job at set dressing certain parts. So there was basically a full color theme going through there as you walked through. But yeah.
But to be fair, we didn't really get to the other side.
We didn't actually.
That
Apart from
much.
when we went to Bodyguard. That's when we got
And
to
it
the
was
side,
dark,
and it was really dark.
Yeah. So
We got to be bodyguards.
yeah, the other side, so the other realm, we had Cyridonia, not Sardonia, which a lot of people it's not the Knights of Sardonia. Cyridonia, right? Again, new LARP, new world. It's like when you have pronunciations as well, you're like, well, who's right and who's wrong? You know, because the players should really decide.
I was very wrong though, like my pronunciation.
Oh, no, I think, but some people were just because that's obviously, you know, like the name of the Muse song or whatever. But anyway, so Cyridonia was like the second biggest nation, second to us, right? They had a quite similar vibe to us in the way that if you wanted to go, the things that you might like about Valdrafe would be applicable to Cyridonia. So these were like the underground paladins, basically. So they were. Yeah, they have underground cities, but yeah, and they wear heavy armor and things like that. So yeah,
they're not dwarfs,
but they're not dwarfs. Yeah, they're definitely not dwarfs. Cyridonia, which was like the second largest, and with them was Morvalis, which is basically House Mortaire, and I think because a member of House Mortaire wrote the Nation Brief. Thing is, they end up with a very like League from Empire type, you know, that kind of.
It was very League, but see some of the kit in that nation though, like walking through it, some of the kit that people come up with there was absolutely gorgeous, and
Oh yeah, I think Morvalis had. You know what? I think. Yeah,
they had the clowns as well.
The jesters,
the jesters that you could hire to annoy people. I love them so much.
Yeah,
so much.
I don't think it's unfair. I think I'm confident enough to say this. I think Morvalis actually had the strongest nation identity there.
No, they did. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
As in, like, they had the most fleshed out. Because the thing with Morvalis is that they are like a necromancy nation. They're exactly a necromancy nation. So that their whole economy, ecosystem, how they function as a culture is that when the inhabitants die, they're then raised from the dead, so they can do all the other. You carry on, so you have all you know, basically skeletons running your army, running the shops. You can do it, but it's all like consensual. So as in, like you give your skeleton to. Or you give your body to a certain cause while you're still alive.
It was great. Like throughout the event, they'd come up to you, be like, "Hello, what are your plans for your body once you're dead?" And it's like, I've never thought about this. I must admit.
That was my answer. To be fair, we'll get onto our characters, but that was my character's answer to it, everything. What was the other one in their circle, in their pie thing? Is it Kairos? Right, yeah, Kairos.
Is Kairos part? Oh, yeah, no, it's Kairos.
Kairos, because they were in between us and Cyridonia.
Kairos, yeah.
We'll get on that when we talk about the counterattack. So,
Kairos
oh my god. So Kairos, Greek, it's a Greek nation, right? This is the best way to describe it. So I have a real soft spot for that as well. Like I love my Arthurian knights, European medieval knights. I love that. My second favorite aesthetic is the Greek.
like
ancient
they did. Like
Greece.
I mean, I know
Love
what
it.
we just said about
Yeah.
Marvalis, but Kairos. Oh my gosh! Like it was really clear you were speaking to someone from that nation. There was essentially one really big group that came into it, and they had all the same shields and everything,
Yeah,
and it
and they
was
were experienced
just gorgeous. They were
LARPers.
very experienced
Yeah,
larpers.
So yeah, but basically it was a you know, a marcher group,
Yeah.
really experienced LARPers that they went right. Okay, this was the cool thing about this being a new LARP. You had, and we'll get into this. We'll continue with the nations, but sorry, I'm just like.
You've hit me like 5 times so far in this podcast episode.
I'm so animated. I'm so animated. I'm so excited
It's
for Menhir's
fine.
Fate.
I haven't moved once.
Stop moving! Stop bumping into me. You had like lots of new LARPers in here. We had lots of experienced LARPers that went, okay, this is a new game, this is a new setting. We get to like, we're gonna like. I spoke to the Kairos people before on Thursday.
Oh yeah.
And they were like, oh, our mission is to literally just be the brief and be like, this is how cool Kairos can be. Yeah, and every time I saw like Kairos doing their thing as well, because they were really small. I think they must be like the second smallest or something, which was kind of surprising to me.
No, I'm
Avero?
I think
You struggle with Avero because it has an X in it, don't you?
it's because I kept going to Vernus. Because I kept calling them that, and it's just because. So when you write it down, there's an A and there's a V, and because I can't quite put it.
Well, yeah, Aver. Yeah, okay, you know. I mean,
okay, it's just.
just call it Avernus. It's fine.
So I kept saying
it's a very
that.
different vibe to Avero, supposed to be, but yeah.
I think they might be the second smallest, simply because not jump too far ahead, but like on the Sunday I had to go over there and speak to someone, and I literally spoke to the entire nation.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that yeah. I mean, Kairos is similar though. Kairos had like 3 like little groups. But anyway, so
I think a lot of them were like on a similar size. I think most of the groups were similar size, and there was like 3 groups that were larger.
Yeah.
If that makes
sense. And then
sense.
the last 3 were Erdriven, which I think was actually way bigger than I thought it was going to be. So Erdriven. So friends of ours came over on Thursday and were like, or Friday morning. And we knew people in like player support in Erdriven. They described it as Dinosaur Navarre, which was like hilarious. There's dinosaurs in this world as well, by the way, which I thought was a joke. But
there was actual dinosaurs at this LARP.
Yeah, there's dinosaurs. There's dinosaurs as well, which is
Do you need any more information, everyone?
Yeah, exactly. But basically, they are. It's difficult. I always struggle when it's like when you try to describe it, because I love playing the game of briefs, especially when they're new briefs, and it's like what they are not, and it's the instant thing you want to say. They're this, you know. It's like Wintermark and Vikings.
Are okay,
right? So they felt like a mix. If you want to do like Empire stuff, they're like a mix between Navarre and the Imperial Orcs. They're a wandering nation as well, so they're not like static on the map. But they were literally on the other side of the wheel to us, right? So we literally couldn't see their camp or anything like that. So they were on the other side of the camp. I think when I read the brief, I was like, I don't know how many people are going to go for this one. They were big.
I think they were pretty
They must have been like the 3rd biggest.
Yeah,
they were definitely the 3rd biggest like camp size. It felt like
they felt really big actually.
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. So you know they're the ones, furs and leathers and things like that. They had a cool vibe. Then you had like Portavas, not pirates. Again, I'm going to have to say just not pirates.
They were pirates.
Yeah. So Portavas, and then you had Hammerstadt. So those 2 were the interesting ones, because I know that I think they're the ones that are furthest from what we are used to at like Empire, and maybe some of the other. Because obviously, I know you have the Greek style of Kairos, but even then, I think obviously the briefs of Hammerstadt and Portavas were just a little bit more different. Took some getting used to, because the different style, because they weren't like basically it's not medieval ish clothing.
It was a different one to kind of get used to, actually. Yeah,
but I mean they look like they were having, like the Portavas people look like they were having, because they're basically like, we're gonna get we're gonna do non-pirate LARP in a big fantasy fest thing. So that's the 9 nations.
That's the 9 nations. Yeah. Yeah. So we ended up obviously. So this is so on the Friday then. We actually chose to do the coffee in the morning as well, just because we weren't sure if we needed coffee or not. So we did coffee in the morning.
Well, we should say about the vendors as well. We're in an enclosed bit.
Yes, that was the next
Which
bit.
I think had pros and cons for the vendors. For us, it was great because you went. It felt very much out of character to go to the vendors and the food and things like that. And then you could come out and it was all like cordoned off. It was great. I think for the vendors, obviously, for business, obviously, they didn't get any through traffic during the game, whereas
Well, the
Empire
thing is,
obviously
I
does.
asked a few of the vendors about this because it got to the Friday, I think, and I was like, I'm going to just ask them. And I asked several vendors, I said, hey, how are you finding it? Because there's no through traffic. And every single one of them was like, oh no, it's great. We've actually had it's still been busy,
Well,
and because the food is here, and because this is the only place the food is at, everyone is coming up here, and that's creating that buzz, which was quite good and everything. They also had like so you had your all your vendors, your food vans, and your medical tent and everything was all up there in one section, nice and easy to get to.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, should I talk about this now? Yeah. So
Don't know what
yeah.
you're talking
Okay.
about.
So well, I was talking about. I was kind of asking myself a question: when's the best time to bring this up? So new LARPers. I heard it kept going
Yeah.
up the percentage of new LARPers. So obviously they were selling tickets right up to the gate, right up to the day
Yeah.
the Friday. You could have turned up like an hour before or whatever and be like, oh, I want to pay for a ticket. So they're obviously getting numbers in as we were approaching time in, and I kept hearing different numbers being like, oh, it's 30% brand new LARPers. Not obviously we're all new players of the game.
Yeah.
But they were like 30% new LARPers, and then it was like 40% new LARPers, and then you hear people say, it's like it's 50%.
It
New
was like
LARPers,
at this point, it was like, wow.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And obviously then there's a worry of just like, oh, like again, I don't like it obviously because we've brought a lot of I don't think it's like uh arrogant to say like we've brought a lot of people into this hobby,
Yeah.
you and I, right? So we're obviously not against new LARPers. We need we
No.
want the hobby to grow, but then I think people were just saying like, oh my god, it's this because they're like, oh, if you have a large percentage of people who don't know LARP etiquette and things like that, things could go wrong.
I think there's definitely people who were worried about things,
Yeah.
like, because it's like obviously you always get people that are new into any hobby, I guess,
Yeah.
really, and there's always that little worry of what if a load of people turn up and this entire vision is actually changed due to a lot of people maybe not really knowing what to do or understanding what to do. What if the fighting is super unsafe? There was these little worries going around that was shared by quite a few people, I think.
Yeah, and I think people didn't really understand. So obviously, like Mark Hume's a friend of ours, right? And him and the Hat Films guys did their Empire stuff, and that contributed to Empire getting a big boost. It's the Hat Films chaps that are basically putting on this LARP. They have a big subscriber base
Yeah.
on YouTube, and they promoted this to their YouTube community. So that maybe there was a bit of a, oh yeah, we're just gonna get a load of random like TikTok meme culture people gonna show up through that. It didn't happen, did it?
No, it didn't happen.
But why I brought it up here was because when we're talking about vendors, it was like the vendors did well because I think we did have 40% new LARPers,
Yeah,
so they didn't have
had
any kit.
no kit, and no
kit.
weapons, and no
Yeah.
anything, and it was like
Yeah, I mean the kit standard. What we're talking about the kit standard now. The kit standard was really high,
it was like
really high,
honestly
in a good way. In a way that it's like we there was like 30%, 40% new LARPers. You couldn't tell by looking. You're like,
no, like not just the fact the kit standard was high, is that it was practical, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Normally when you're brand new into something, and I made the mistake coming brand new into it, you don't quite dress for the elements the same way as you would do usually.
Yeah.
Whereas this isn't what happened here.
Be a crack. That's not a sound effect. That's on my roadcaster. That's a beer opening, natural one. But you'll never know.
Chris, this didn't happen here. Everybody looked incredible. There wasn't a single person I walked past and I was like, oh, jeans and t-shirt's an interesting look.
Which is what
you
we usually this is how this is what LARPers do. We just look at people and we just judge. We go,
that's all that happens.
I'm going to judge your
It doesn't. I can't even joke about it.
No, I mean
It
the
doesn't.
kit standard was like immensely good.
It was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It was at the point where I was like, okay, there's like 40% new LARPers here. It'd be really cool to kind of get people into it and role play and everything. I was like, don't know who the new LARPers are.
Yeah. and I will say as well, like, so obviously a lot of the crew are NPCs, you know, doing their thing, and they're obviously in kit. And I was worried, you know, because like Empire do their nations so well. I know that Empire, the only, you know, a lot of other fest LARPs do nations and things like that to group people up, but it's one thing they do the best, you know. And I was obviously worried when I read some of the briefs. I'm like, well, is this too similar to that one? Are we gonna tell? Because that's a good thing about Empire, is that the best thing about it literally is the best thing about Empire is that you can talk to someone and then go talk to another person and say, hey, I just spoke to Navari, without ever actually asking where they were, what nation they're in.
Yeah.
You can look at someone's kit, look at how they present themselves and go, that's from that nation. I'll admit, I walked in and all the NPCs, I was just like, oh, that's a Kairos. Oh, that's a Portavas. It seemed to work.
It worked. Yeah. That's it. Literally did. It worked.
Yeah. It seemed to work. Should we get into time in?
Yeah. Because I mean, like, so a little bit about our characters, you know, just before like time in.
Oh yeah, our characters. Yeah,
because we haven't really mentioned our characters yet.
They sucked anyway.
This might really shock everyone here, but we decided to go for knights in shining armor.
Paladins is what you're talking about.
We decided to go for paladins.
Yeah. So how does it feel, Robyn? How does it feel being the typecast paladin after all those years of playing D&D and you saying paladins are not good?
Look, I'm still not going to play paladin.
You know you love paladins.
You can't get me away from my bards or my monks. It's never.
They are the best. So yeah,
in real life, yes.
In real life.
I'm classing LARP as real life.
It's live action. It's real life.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a live action. If you've got something live action, it's real. It doesn't matter if it's like a Disney movie that's 80% CGI. If it's live action, it's then real life.
So our characters. So look and feel we went blue and gold. Nice strong look.
Well, because our Empire house is black and red. And I think like George's group in the marches is green and red, the green and burgundy, yeah. So we're all like, we want to do something completely different color scheme wise. Let's do blue and gold. When we were making these and we said our color scheme is blue and gold, it felt like every single person we spoke to going to Menhirs Fate was like, oh, our thing is blue and gold. And even like people, like we had friends in Cyridonia, they were like, oh my god, we're making the same.
Oh, the
same group,
identical. We ordered most stuff from Berschneider, and they had like the identical stuff. They were using the same dye and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be like everyone's kind of going like really blue. It didn't actually end up being the case at all, though, to be honest.
Honestly, yeah, because I've thought that everyone's gonna look the same, because the problem is obviously with a new LARP. New system, it's difficult to have an original idea, because every original idea you have, other people have already kind of think in the same way, you know? So it's easier at something like Empire to be like, oh, where's the, you know, so when like Mark came up with House Mortaire, it just so happened at that time, Dawn was very like summer focused, very bright colors, and he was like, well, there's space here for like a winter house, with this view on the national brief. But if everyone's coming in, no one knows where the gaps are in the brief. We found some. We'll get to it.
We definitely found.
We found some gaps in the player base that need to be filled quite desperately. But yeah, like it's difficult to come up with an original idea and go, right, okay, this guy. The Grey Wardens was another one as well. I was like, well, we kind of want to go Grey Warden-y, but that's very obviously close to the Valdrafe brief, and we're speaking to other people going, and they're like, oh, our group is, we're based on the Grey Wardens, and we're like, oh, cool, that's our idea too, you know? But when we got there, we stood out crazily, didn't we? So
Yeah, I mean, like, the picture
I
that
thought we
I
did.
know that I'm putting on the thumbnail for this,
Yeah.
it just looks incredible with
Yes.
like the sun and everything,
The
and us
gold
just standing out with the
armor
gold
and
armor. Oh my
yeah.
god. Yeah, so we went for this sort of blue and gold theme with we chucked a little bit of red in there as well, you know, just to off center a little.
Yeah.
We
We
two
look,
of us accidentally had red on. So
yeah,
it's
we
fine.
look really freaking cool. So our group are called the Knights of the Last Gift.
Mm-hmm.
I based it very much on I'm saying I based it on we collectively based it
I
on
came up with the name.
you did come up with a name. But I personally really wanted base their Knights of the Round Table. So that there are gods on like Empire where they're like there's no gods here, you know, the religion system is very unique. Which they didn't copy that side of it. They went nations, but they went, you know what, there are gods. There are gods and they're freaking really powerful and cool, you can meet them, and we did, and we'll talk about that. That's really cool. But we were like, right, we're gonna have like the gods are obviously a big part of this game. So instead of making a group dedicated to one god, why don't we just split it so we all follow the examples of a different god? Because
Yeah.
then, because it's a game about unity, is what we were thinking, and we were kind of. I think we were correct. I think we got the right vibe.
Oh, we definitely did. Like,
So all the gods working together
yeah.
is was the idea. You know, if we can, if I hold the ideals of the guardian, you will hold the ideals of the warrior. We work together well.
Yeah. So that there's 12 gods in this system, and we decided that our sort of order would have, you know, 12 members, each member following a different god. But at this point, you know, due to the corruption and everything else that's been happening, we're actually just down to 4 members. So we have 4 different gods, and these 4 members are there. And we obviously, the hope is to gain another 8 members for the other 8 gods, so that we would have that group of 12, each following a different god. And it worked. It was really cool just having the 4 separate gods, though, because you'd have people come up and asking things, and we'd be like, oh, you know, that sounds like a Reaper thing. Here, please speak to my brother, and he will be able to discuss that with you, or, you know, and so on.
It wasn't intentional, but I ended up doing like just a Space Marine LARP fantasy, because we called each other brother and sister because we were like, we're supposed to be like holy. Not all, only 2 of us were like priests, basically, because you and I went just martial skills. But yeah, we were like, okay, we're gonna call each other brother and sister, but then it just ended up, and we were in like the ultramarine, like, you know, colors. We'll go about it in length, but I have to say it here because I'm too excited about it. But like, obviously there was us, and there was lots of like new larpers, or like baby larpers as we like to call them, that hadn't done like combat and things like that, or hadn't done role playing combat before, and we got to do this whole like, especially with like, obviously we had George, who was national support in our group, so we were kind of like the nation support right? And also we're experienced larpers now. Obviously Al's experienced larper as well. So we got to do that thing on the battlefield where we were just Space Marines among the Imperial Guards. We were just like, I'm running out in front of you, smash, do the
honestly,
thing. We're like, brother, sister.
I can't wait till we get on to talking about the fighting,
the
because
combat was good,
I'm always like, okay, because whenever I speak to people come into LARP and everything, and they're like, oh yeah, but you know, the combat, I don't know if I want to fight. So I'm always like kind of cautious of that when I'm speaking about it. But oh my gosh, the fighting in this game was so good.
So yeah, so I played, my character's called Lancelis. He just turned into just like paladin himbo, because I wanted to play someone who just wasn't Daemon.
Yeah.
So he was more similar to Godric than he was Daemon, but I'm like, this is the setting for that type of character. This is a PvE setting. There is space if you want to do like political kind of PvP
Oh yeah,
style
definitely.
stuff. There was a few like you know, experienced Empire players that wanted to jump into that straight away. Valdrafe has a history of a monarchy. And it's like, well, do we do a monarchy? This, that, the other? Are we anti-monarchy? And I was like, I want to prove a point in this game that I am like, because Damon has lots and lots of opinions. That's my Empire character. Empire is very political PvP. Having opinions is what Empire's all about. And I was like, this game, how they've sold it to me is that this is a PvE game. We're going to go on adventures. You're going to be a D&D hero. You get to fight evil and be heroic or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to play someone who is very basic and just go, especially since we just became like pseudo national support with Georgia being national support.
Yeah.
It was way easier not to have that many opinions on things anyway, unless it was just like very across the board views on like the gods and things like that. So I was just like, every time someone asked me, I was just like, I'm here to fight the corruption. You know, I'm here to
Like I think
embody the Guardian.
I managed to turn every single question into a well, what do you think about this? You know,
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself? You know, on this.
Yeah. So my character was just, I was like, you know what, and I think by the very end, I think he developed in something. We can get to that. Who are you playing, Robyn?
I played Artoria, and Artoria was very much she's there to save the day. If somebody's in need, she will be there. You know, if someone's sad, she'll try and cheer them up. You know, she just wants everyone to get through this together, and together, you know, we can fight the corruption and we can end it. You know, that's small compared to all of us here together. She wants to be everyone's friend, and she actively became friends with so many people.
Yeah.
She was just so happy, smiling all the time. In fact, we will get to the gods in a minute, but her god even pointed out the fact that she was so happy and so smiley and everything.
We just went so hard against like Nymeria and Damon, didn't we? And just like,
I was
right,
like,
okay,
do you know what? Artoria is not Nymeria. Artoria is going to be outwardly really like, you know, smiley and happy, and you know, if somebody screams, she will grab her sword and she will run to that person no matter who they are and where they are. You know, she will do that. And I did that all weekend. I'm really tired.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was great. So yeah, I was basically in our group, Lancellis is like the champion of the Guardian. You're the champion of the warrior. So then we had Al's character was the champion of the Reaper, and George's was the champion of the Justicar. But it was really cool leaning into those types of like, that was the idea. The idea wasn't we were like, okay, let's pick a god, which you totally could do. It's not saying this is how you have to do it. That my thinking, and I think extension, the group's thinking as well, was the fact that then we could explore we could all role play differently in that way. So if I approach something in a certain way, I'm going to approach it like Lancellis's way, and he's going to look at it from the Guardian's point of view. Whereas like, you know, like Al's character might come at it from like the Reaper, that developed into quite a fun like little like, you know, this is your view, and the fact that we have like, can I count like 8? So we have 8 missing seats in our order.
Yeah.
So the fact that when someone would come up and be like, oh, and they were a follower of the Jester, and they had this view on something, and then like, you know, we had Al's character being like, oh, the Reaper would do this, blah blah blah. I'm just like, well, we don't currently have that perspective. This is why we need this perspective in our order.
Yeah, we need these other 8 people in here.
Yeah,
because,
to bring balance to everything. So the idea was we weren't completely uniformed on one thing, apart from we have to kill the corruption. That was the one thing we were uniformed on.
No, I did like kind of leaning into the warrior stuff and everything, because I decided the way that this game works as well, you can be in a different stage of your journey if you like, and people are given certain names and things depending on the deeds that they've achieved. And I decided that Artoria was going to be at the beginning of her journey, which made more sense because it allowed me to kind of be a bit more naive on certain things, because I could be very much like, you know, she's at the beginning of her journey. There's a lot of things she hasn't experienced yet. And when it came to like meeting the gods and everything, and I got to meet like the warrior and stuff, OC, there was part of me being like, because everyone's like, oh, the warriors, there you can go and speak to them. They're literally dedicating people now. And I'm like, I'm OC, that's terrifying. I don't want to go do that. And I was like, do you know what? I want to lean into this as my character. So by the time I actually did get to speak to the warrior, I was very like, you know, giddy and stuff. But I kind of went really hard into the, you know, warrior. Well, the best defense is a good offense, you know? And I went really heavy on that. And a lot of people liked that. I did enjoy that kind of role play, you know, just like, I'm just going to run in and kill it before you can kill me, you know? I'm still here and happy and here to save the day.
Yeah, yeah. So timing was basically, so Haven, I mean, this was a cool thing to be like a part of, because technically it was like the first event. So like canonically, obviously this was the first time we had all been in like people that Haven existed, right?
Yeah.
So Haven was made by the gods. And then each god, I think, has like three aspects or whatever. There's like different aspects of the gods, right? So there's different versions, like physical manifestations of what that god represents. So they had NPCs, obviously representing the different aspects of the gods. So when Time In started, they had all the gods. I will admit, it was one of those, like, it's a brand new LARP. They went Time In, and a few of us went, okay, what do we do? What do we do now? Because I think that they set up the game to be NPC initiated, you know? So a lot of us didn't really have too much to do at the start because no one had set anything up. There's no storylines going. It's a brand new Fest LARP. So there was obviously people started. I think that's why a few people lent on the political PvP stuff, because that's just something
instantly,
like, especially Empire players can just do, you know, you can just put a load of Empire players in the room and be like, okay, it's Empire. This is the, you know, you are in wherever Astolat in a ballroom, go, and they'll just talk for like 6 hours, political PvPing, you know. So I think a few players did like lean on that and go, okay, let's start role playing, and started doing that. But this game, I think they wanted to be like, okay, this is the storyline that's going to be initiated by these NPCs.
Yeah.
For you to do something. So they had several aspects of the gods wandering around, firing people up, basically being like, oh, we've created this place for you. And then they started obviously doing their god spiel, right? Funnily enough, right? So I was a follower of the Guardian, and I instantly struggled to get immersed because Mark was playing the Bastion, which is an aspect of the Bastion. Yeah, it was an aspect of the Guardian, and I instantly was just like, because I thought, you know, I'm gonna find the Guardian, I'm gonna do this, and I'm like, so like, like it's instantly just Mark, right? Okay, it's cool. But no, it's fine. I role play it. But then obviously the thing with that type of LARP, when you have a big LARP system, obviously it's the first event, so there's not as many people, but even still, they had several of these aspects of the gods, and they are like almost like the quest givers or the NPCs that we need to go speak to. Obviously, there ended up being a queue of people to speak to these NPCs then in the end, you know? So my first idea of like, oh, I'm going to go speak to the Guardian, and then I'm like, oh, I see it, like it's literally Mark NPCing as the Guardian. Also, I've got all these people waiting to go speak to the Guardian as well, and then that's where my conversations kind of started, with speaking to these people that wanted to go see the Guardian, if you like.
Yeah, because you were speaking to lots of people that were there wanting to speak to the Guardian, and to the point that the Guardian himself literally like turned around to speak to you because you've been so like immersed in chatting to all the other people who follow the Guardian. It was like that instant like thing that kind of united you in a sense.
I think that was the main thing people would like do it, because again, there wasn't really much. There wasn't anything, especially people who weren't like instantly going, right, I want to go do it, I don't know, a ritual or something. They were like, I want to go speak to my god, because that is our gods are here. So if you're like, if I chose a god, then people saw, oh, there's an aspect of the warrior, the scholar, and the guardian here, and then people were going to be like, oh, look, have you seen the jesters here or the celebrants here or something like that. So people were then, that was quite cool. People were then like splitting off. But you know what? We did actually get the main, like we got a glimpse of the main quest, but I didn't really
Yeah.
pick up on
yeah,
it
we
annoyingly.
did, we
The main overarching quest was like literally the scholar ended up even though I was talking to the Guardian, the scholar literally ended up talking to us about the aspect of the scholar. It literally ended up talking to us about, oh yeah, I've got these that. What was the book again? I wish I paid more attention because it ended up being like the main thing of the weekend. Basically, there was this magic book. There was fragments of the scholar that had been scattered or taken. I couldn't quite figure that out, or I can't remember. I think I was locked in at the time, but I can't actually remember what the idea was. But basically, we had to get these fragments. The scholar was like playing it off a little bit lightheartedly. He was like, "Oh yeah, well, you know, I kind of need them back because if I don't get my fragments back, I might die." And we're like, "Die?" He's like, "Yeah." Anyway, back in we end up walking back to Valdraith camp, and then we bumped into the warrior, the aspect of the warrior. Again, I can't quite remember which aspects we were talking to.
It was the aspect of the warrior, literally, because I'd seen them originally, and then was like, I'm not feeling quite confident enough roleplay yet to go up and do anything. I need another hour or so to kind of get a feeling for what I'm doing. And then we walked to our camp, and he's standing at our camp. And I'm like, okay,
to be
cool,
fair,
cool, great.
it was good that the Morvalis, again, I'm don't know the terminology. The Morvalis person, Morvali. What's the plural of people from Morvalis? So there was a person from Morvalis who literally was like at our camp because the warrior was there, and they were like, "Who wants to fight me?" And I was just like, "Whatever, I'll fight.
I'll fight you."
I'll fight you." So I fight because they were like trying to prove themselves to the warrior, and it was the challenger. I think it was the aspect of the challenger.
Yes, yeah, it was
So it was all
challenging.
about challenge and things like that. So that's where I got speaking to the challenger. I probably had a more in-depth conversation with the challenger than I did the guy, again, because like at the start of the game, everyone was mobbing the aspects of the gods. But I ended up speaking to the challenger, and then obviously I was like, oh yeah, my sister's actually a follower of the warrior and things like that. So, but he had an interesting thing. Again, it was the main quest, and I kind of missed it, even though I was just like, we don't seem to be getting much quest, and the main quest was literally right in front of us the entire time.
It was right there.
And yeah, I said, oh, I spoke to the scholar earlier, and you know this, that, there, and then the warrior was like, oh no, that's bad. Like, because I was like, oh yeah, the scholar says he might even die. I was like, no, not he might die. Like if we don't get these aspects, these fragments back, he could fall to the corruption, which would be bad for everybody. I'm like, oh.
It
Oh,
also
that's
kind of
really
showed
bad.
the fact that like all the gods, for the gods that we met anyway, had a bit of a unity between them as well. It wasn't that sort of like there wasn't any like dividedness between them. Like they knew what the other ones were needing, and they genuinely cared as well. And that was quite cool.
So the gods did have like in character. I love this because I heard all this secondhand, but I heard a few things that the aspects of the gods did, which made it feel more D&D high fantasy. Apparently, the scholar, so that there is literally a call which has completely got out of my head. What was the insta kill spell? Disintegrate. Obliterate.
Obliterate.
Right. Apparently,
Obliterate. Yeah, obliterate. Yeah.
Yeah, apparently this there's literally a magic call which obliterate, which is just insta death.
Yeah.
Insta death.
You're gone.
Apparently, the scholar at one point someone did something.
They sold their faith for coin.
Which we'll explain in a second.
So yeah, well, I mean, we can explain now. Like, we will go on to like player packs and things. One thing that everybody will receive is one faith token. You get one of these. These faith tokens can be used for different things. For example, you can hand this over to basically be dedicated to a certain god. Or you can hand these over to people that are able to use them for various things in the game. If you've got a priest in your group, they can use these and you can just hand them to them. You don't have to do anything else with them if you don't want to. But one thing that's really clear, you cannot sell these
for coin. Yeah.
For coin. Yeah. This is your faith. You cannot sell it. Somebody tried to sell for coin.
Well, I think someone was trying to buy coin outside the bank
or had to
like
buy,
which
either
I think it was
sell
an NPC,
or buy, but either way, yeah.
But anyway, apparently
I think it was an NPC.
Apparently, the scholar just obliterated them, which I think. And again, I didn't see it. I just heard rumors that this happened. I was like, "That's the way." If there's a god in the camp, that's the type of thing you should do. Mark told me a story about him as the Guardian. Apparently,
Yeah.
so apparently there was a load of stuff going on at the Menhir. There was like a ritual or something going on, and there was issues. Apparently, something had gone wrong, and people were taking damage. So apparently, there was something crazy going on at the Menhir. People were literally taking damage,
Okay.
and the Guardian literally came in and was like, "Okay, I'm the Guardian." And just went like mass resist, and just like, and apparently like the crew were like, and I was like, I'm the Guardian, and they're like, okay,
I
cool.
feel like this is something the Guardian should be able to do
Yeah,
right now.
I was like, well, you're a freaking god. I'm like, if you can't do that as a god, then it was just
If I
like,
can't hold up a shield.
to like literally be like, oh yeah,
here.
I'm literally a god, and these are my people. I'm literally going to solve this, and just went mass resist, and just went right, follow me, everybody, and just got
Come
them out
on,
of danger.
everyone. Let's go.
So I really like the fact that, because obviously that can be a difficult thing to pull off without it being like, but well, that was the other thing. I think Mark had said like the NPC side being like, what if someone tries to kill a god? And I think there was an understanding of just like, well, I think what would happen is that nothing basically just it becomes like literally being hit by a foam sword, just being like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? People are like, crush or something like that. He was like,
that feels like a foam sword to
You're
me.
like, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I like the gods felt like gods from those again, this is all like, secondhand information, but I like the way the gods felt like actual gods as well. So I mean, I guess we better speak about the bank LARP, because they decided. So Menhirs Fate decided to do the like getting of your player packs and all your stuff in character.
Yeah.
So at Empire, I'm going to mention Empire a lot because it's our first LARP.
I was going to say that actually, like we have mentioned Empire like a lot during this,
happen.
but it's because it's what we have to compare it with.
Yeah, so I'm trying purposely not to be like, this was better than Empire, this is not as good as Empire, but that you got to understand that that's our reference to a lot of this as well. But getting your like your player packs, which has like your resources, and so if you are familiar with us talking about Empire and that, when you create a character, you get to choose a resource. I won't go over that too much. Basically, you can pick money, or one of the. So all the realms of magic had like this essence, which you could get as well.
Called Flicker.
Flicker. There we go. Yeah. So you could get those if you chose those as your resource. We chose money because we were like, so they had a bank, right? Which was probably the best part about this LARP.
It was absolutely incredible.
I'm sorry.
I don't know how to sell you on bank LARP, but like seriously, right? It was a bank.
It's a bank. They had, so for one, it was like beautifully set up, wasn't it?
Oh, it's gorgeous.
They literally only had like 6 people as well. So obviously that's something they're going to have to workshop a little bit, because quite clear. I mean, the one good thing they did was that it wasn't like imperative that you had your stuff. So you had your like character passport, which is something you could have had online. You could have printed it out. If you didn't print it out, basically they were, because it's a new LARP, because they wanted to make ticket sales, they didn't want to put a barrier up and be like, oh, if you don't have a ticket by this time, like you can't do this, you can't do that, or you have to do this. So they just went like, buy a ticket anytime. But obviously people who like, because I cocked up because I didn't assign my ticket to my character.
I did it right.
Yeah, because I'm last minute. But you went in, and they did a very good job of balancing the in character and out of character bit, because they're basically God games operations desk, right? So any issues you had, you like, as in from the game side, you went to the bank, but it was in character. So I think it was an experiment that went really well.
Yeah, it did. Like
there's a few tweaks they need to do, but
yeah, and these are just things like obviously
super impressive.
Yeah, like the Friday night, obviously there was a queue outside the bank for a long time, which didn't seem to change. It was just constantly there because people were trying to get packs. But the experience of when you actually got in there. First of all, it didn't feel like you were rushed or anything. It felt like you were at an actual bank. And
Which
you were.
It's fun, I assure you.
I'm trying to tell you, it was fun, okay,
It was
guys?
fun, yeah.
Because you've got actual stuff in
Yeah.
this bank. So you got to go there.
It is fun, yeah.
I got to like hand over my information, and then they brought out my own personal little passport, which all I see is they opened it up. And then they would look through my account and they'd let me know what was in my account and ask me how much I wanted to withdraw from my account. Because you don't have to withdraw all. You could leave some in there. And so you would then say what you want to withdraw. They'd be like, well, how would you like this? Would you like, because it's all different. They've got obviously the currency in the game, but they'd ask you what sort of like coins you want and everything. Like, would you want it,
Yeah, what denomination?
What denomination of coin do you want? And I was like, oh no, whatever.
Or you could leave stuff in the bank as well.
You could leave stuff in the bank. That's what I was saying, is you can leave stuff in. You can also deposit stuff as you went on throughout the event as well. If you deposit something into the bank, you are entered into a lottery. They did government bonds in LARP.
Yeah, government bonds, yeah.
So they did government bonds. That's what they did here.
Yeah.
And it is really cool because it encourages you to put some money back into the economy of this game.
But also, it was alluded to us as well that, remember, because that is, out of character where you get your stuff from. But I was reminded by some NPCs working at the bank, just like, remember, it's an in-character bank, which means it's an in-character bank, as in it, like, they are part of the world in a way that, are they on your side? Are they not on your side? Do they have their interests at heart? Don't they? Who knows? It's not going to be like, they're not like a neutral, complete, they are a bank, and like in the real world, you might agree what the banks do with your money, they might not, and that could be a really interesting ripple to the game, and it's already a big part of our game because what Al did. I mean, it wasn't something we did.
Should we talk about the buildings thing that you can do in the bank actually? Because this is this is actually incredible.
But this happened on Saturday, right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh no, it did happen on Friday.
No, Friday we went.
Did we get our packs on Friday? No, we
got our packs on Friday.
Yeah, we did get our packs on Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was a skirmish going out, and we were like, we need to get these packs because I know what I'm like, and I will go all weekend without picking up. I've done that before Empire. I've literally gone until Sunday without picking up a player pack.
I think it's because we wanted to join the Adventurers Guild, and they had a membership fee. So
we needed 20 monies to
20 money. What were they again? They were the legends,
myths, and sagas.
So sagas were the smallest.
Mm-hmm.
Then myths and legends,
myths
or
and legends.
Yeah. Almost. It was also 20, and 20.
It was really easy,
easy,
easy numbers, easy money to play with. It was
20.
It was a base 20 system, really nice and simple to work through. We needed 20 monies to join the Adventurers Guild, and that's why we needed our pack on the Friday. I later found out that they were going to trial it where no membership fees would be on the Friday, just so they could like trial this bank
get
system.
Things going,
and that didn't happen, but it worked out fine.
Yeah,
it worked out fine.
Yeah, we'll talk about the guild, the other guilds a bit later.
Because this actually led us onto our first sort of like mission, didn't it? On the Friday.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Bankers Guild had what they called constructions, buildings, whatever they're called.
I was calling them buildings, but they might have been like.
So they laid out a load that were like, basically you could go and you could it's like investing. It's investing into something, but because the world is like brand new as well, it really did feel like a TTRPG where you were a player contributing to world building, because they're like, oh, we could build this, or we could build this in the Wonder, we could build this in Kairos, we could build this, and this would do this. We could build a big, massive temple that in Valdraith for this, or we could build a big, temple in Morvalis, or a big necropolis or something like that in Morvalis that would do this, and some of the building, so that they would lay out, go, okay, this is the project. So there was loads written by the Bankers Guild themselves, that were like it, because it was quite even among the board, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was actually on Saturday that I read a lot of these. But anyway, so Al and our group was just like, I want to build a cool thing. We want dragon riders. We want dragons, right? And it's like this type of world. I mean, I'm all about this. Obviously, I'm not a game designer, right? But even as someone who like runs as a DM, having lots and lots of players be like, we're gonna like make this world that can get really out of hand really fucking fast. But it's also was like, hey, like dragons. So I'm not gonna not spoil, but I'm not obviously I'm not going to go dive deep into this game because it's still active game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to matter as much as it does in Empire. I mean,
No,
I've
it
got to
doesn't
admit,
actually matter. Like it's
we
what
want people to know about it.
Yeah, because what they've created is collaborative world building.
Yeah.
That's what they've done here. They have written all these amazing things. Like, do the players want a bakery in the Wonder? Do they want a weird mystery tower on Valdreas? Do the
Mystery box. We'll talk about the mystery box.
like, what do they want? It was a really good way of one answering, what do the players want out of this, but also allowing all these people there to basically be like, sort of like years later, something might happen this tower, and it'd be like, oh no, I was one of the investors in that tower. Actually, that this is what we wanted.
We'll see. We'll see. Obviously, like as the years go on, they might just squash it down a little bit. But this is the time where it's like this is the Wild West. We can do what we want basically. So I was like, I was like, well, there's dragons, right? And it's like, are they dragons? Yeah, they're dragons. Like, well, I've said they're dragons, so they're dragons, right? I want to do dragon riders, and he put this forward and was like, can we make this happen? And he's like, all right, I've got a meeting tomorrow at the bank. So he set it up, didn't he? I was like, I've got a meeting. So this is the cool thing about Bank Live. It's like, okay, so you're going to go in for a meeting, and he got like, we'll get to it on Saturday. We'll talk about that when we talk about Saturday, I think. So he got all dressed up and was like, I'm going to go for a meeting.
It was incredible.
Yeah, to see what, and there were some really cool things that happened there. But before we get too much into that,
let's wrap up our Friday first,
stuff.
Because a few more things did actually happen on Friday.
Loads happened on Friday.
We wanted to join the Adventurers Guild. That's why we were there in the bank. That's why we're trying to get our money. So we withdrew what we chose to withdraw from the bank. And then we pretty much went from there straight to the Adventurers Guild.
Yeah.
Where we met Dolly.
Another
previous podcast
guest. So Dolly was one of the Adventurers Guild guild masters.
Guildmaster. We're going to call him Guildmaster.
I'm pretty sure Guildmaster. No, I think Guildmaster is the correct term.
Okay.
So yeah, Dolly was like, right, okay. Before we even managed, I mean, so this was the thing about this LARP, was that they tried to do, I feel like the idea was we're going to do an MMO like World of Warcraft in LARP, and they succeeded, but they got a lot of they got a lot of the upsides and a lot of the downsides. So I did feel like I was in an MMO. I was like, I'm going to go join the Adventurers Guild, but obviously because it's a massive multiplayer online game, there's going to be a lot of waiting and a lot of like, oh yeah, we're all going for the same thing at the same time. Which is what happens in an MMO. So they kind of had that as well. So you could feel the pressure. I mean, the Bankers Guild, one thing I will say about them, they had the most pressure on them because every player had to come to them.
Yeah.
And there was only like 4 or 6 of them at any one time. I will also say, like, we're talking about podcast people. Will was part of the Bankers Guild, who we had on a couple of years ago now. On the podcast, big in the economy game at Empire.
This was like his baby here.
Oh yeah,
it?
so
like it was just
everybody in the Bankers Guild. You just tell they were so passionate about doing bank LARP. That's what made it really good. The Adventurers Guild, we went in there. We had Dolly. There was Ian as well from LARP Noobs from LARP News podcast. They were just they made it feel like a proper Adventurers Guild. They had all the, like I said, like the bank was laid out like a bank. The Adventurers Guild was just like there was knickknacks everywhere.
Yeah, there was like remnants of like previous things that had gone out, and like maps and books flying around. And because like Ian was like all like, because it was Ian was the one that like took our like payment eventually, and we're jumping all over the place. No one cares. No. And he was the one that like sold us on the fact that there was like this book that you could fill out. BBC, yeah.
Or as Lancelot called it, the Beast Diary. The Beast Diary. Not the bestiary, the beast, because it's a diary of beasts that you find.
Lancelot's great.
Lancelot was fun to play.
So we got to the Adventurers Guild and we're like, okay, we have our monies, we can now join. But as we got there, they needed us for something, and there was something going out.
So there was too much queuing to be like. So Dolly did us a favor and was just like, "There's literally a thing going out now. we don't have time to sign you up, but I want to get you out on something.
Yeah.
You know, so we ended up like, he was like, oh, my daughter is going off and she needs a bodyguard.
So he tasked us because we were the golden three, I think he called us, like the golden three.
Yeah.
You're the bodyguards, and oh my god, I took this so seriously. I did not leave her sight.
Yeah, we were the annoying bodyguards.
We
We're
were
just like,
no,
we're following you. We're just following.
I need to go and pee. I'm coming with you.
following the NPC, and it was again one of those quests in MMOs where you're just like follow this NPC, and they're just you know, slower than your run speed, but just faster than your walk speed. So we were just like just this the whole time. So the mission that we found out of it, because we didn't have the information. Apparently there was a witch that they were supposed to go kill. So we
didn't care about that. We were to bodyguard.
We're the bodyguards.
I don't care about this witch. I don't care about what's happening. I need to keep this one person alive.
yeah. I mean, we've totally gone over we've totally brushed over the camp attacks. We'll go back to the camp attacks.
Go back to the camp attacks later, because the camp attacks were more so on the Saturday. They were on the Friday,
well,
but they were more intense.
That's why we missed
Saturday.
the main part of the main story, is because we were like off doing that side quest. But anyway, so we were. The way I say that, because it was dark at this point, right? So we were over in Portavas and we were waiting. Again, this is where it became very much like an MMO, the good parts and the bad parts. So we were like, we're all waiting, but then we ended up like spawn camping. That's basically what we did, right? We spawn camped waiting for the witch to spawn with all the mobs, right? So we basically we like kill the mobs and then we head off. Obviously, what's happening is that, in fact, this is the point in the podcast where I will say, we've been to a few Eversley events. So they're like, you know, the site that Johnny and Kitty run. We've, you know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Now My Watch has ended. Now My Watch begins. Dragon's Hunt, Eldritch Isle. They're all at the Eversley site, and the crew for this game, a massive chunk, especially the skirmish crew, the combat crew, are that lot.
Yeah.
And the way the encounters around the field, the entire LARP was very, very similar to how Johnny and Kitty run those games, how people who work with Feast Your Eyes and iLARP run the games, to the point where as soon as I started playing, I was like, oh, I'm familiar with all this, like, because not in a bad way, but like it's I saw the patterns of what was going on. So what they have managed to do, I think pretty successfully, they basically upscaled an iLARP game or a Feast Your Eyes game.
That's what it kind of felt like.
Very much felt like that. I could tell when things were moving around, when things were about to happen. You had like things running for every nation. You had storylines running from all the guilds and storylines running from all the nations, and the skirmish crew were having to pick up on all that. Obviously, that's a lot for one crew to do.
Yeah.
You know, so there was times where we were like, oh, we're literally, and it was like spawn camp. We were like, oh, we're waiting for skirmish crew to finish that thing so they can come and be the monsters for our thing. That's basically what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, we went out on this one, and we were assigned there as the bodyguards. What we actually did though is, because we did have that sort of like gap where, you know, there wasn't like anything happening for a wee bit. We had a good friend of ours who is a wonderful swordsman, and he kind of like geared everyone up and was like, hey, you know, it's cold out here and it's dark and we're waiting. The best way to stay warm is to
time me out. Yeah.
So he like jumped on and had like a practice with you in front of everyone. And you guys had like a really good like in like first to 3 hit sort of thing.
I didn't have any of my stuff on me, by the way. This was the one where I was like, they were like, come on, let's go, and I'm like, I've literally left my hammer and my shield, and I've literally had my sidearm.
Wait, like, yeah.
That's all I had for this encounter.
And then after that, he was like, right, everybody, get into pairs, first to 3, let's do this. It's the best way to keep warm. And what was really good is it allowed us all to have a bit of role play, have a bit of fun, do a bit of fighting, keep warm. And it allowed that time to kind of pass a little bit while OC, we knew skirmish team were trying to get from one side to the other side and get ready for this next encounter, you know, and it was a way of just kind of keeping everybody like, everybody stay here, you know, don't go running off, because there is going to be a big fight soon. We don't want you guys getting bored and running off. And there was a real big mixture of new players in that group, actually, which was quite fun to be able to be like, yeah, let's all like, you know, pair up and just do some fighting.
Yeah, it's funny. Like combat is usually the point where you then notice, because I think LARPers all pretend anyway, but like when combat starts, it's usually the time where you start to pick out where the new LARPers are. Not in a bad way at all, but like
No.
it's just like so when it comes to role play, like some people are just naturally, because role play is something that people do as kids, right? Like every single child plays pretend, right? So even you get people that are confident in certain aspects of role play, but pretty much everyone can role play. When it comes to combat, everyone can role play doing combat, but there's then a mechanical aspect of it where people aren't sure. That's almost part of the role play. So then they're like, "Oh, do we do this? Oh, do we do that and do that?" And then you start to kind of see where the new LARPers are, which is the point where like more experienced LARPers obviously then need to kind of step up and go like, "This is how we have fun," basically. We're like, "Oh, we go out into the darkness," or we argue about whether we should go out into the darkness, you know. Actually, in fact, actually, we'll talk about a little bit about the combat. Again, it's the Eversley crew, which we know a lot of faces in.
Yeah.
And it was, even though there is mechanics to this game, this setting, so we have hit points and we have calls and things like that. It seemed natural for us to be like, I'm gonna do some cinematic stuff, which is more role play, which is not. There are definitely two type of like combat LARPers. There are the people that go, right, okay, this is like a bit more of a sport where we go, okay, you've got 6 hit points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do my call, do the thing, I win. And there are the people that want to just have a big hammer and go, this isn't the most efficient thing to get hit points off, but I'm gonna pretend like I'm wielding a big heavy hammer and I'm gonna paladin my way through this, you know. And you know, I saw a lot of the people that I usually play with at Eversley. It's just like, yeah, we're just gonna do, you know, theater combat, and that was the vibe, wasn't it? Which
no, it definitely was.
really
like I did feel like I could literally go up with my greatsword and do a huge, big theatrical swing, and they were taking it as if I had just taken out all of their hit points in one blow, you know. And it was that sort of like real, like, you know, cool role play. And the same on the other side as well. Like I love taking hits like in the right way and stuff. I love kind of, so this is a system where obviously there was lots of calls. I don't think we're going to go through like all the calls right now, because there was quite a lot of calls, but one call that there wasn't that you do have in Empire is Strike Down. Strike Down is a call that many people hate because it puts you on the actual ground itself. I think I've realized I actually secretly am one of the weirdos that love this call, because I actually quite like doing that role play.
So, I don't know how you ended, because
I end up on the ground.
At the end of this, you were like, I was on the ground. I'm just like, why you and Al were both on the ground? Like, there's literally no need for you to be on the ground.
But it looked really cool when someone shouted "crush" and hit me.
Oh no, but
I could
you're
go
on
down
0
onto
then.
the ground and then
you
like
are
do
zero.
a
You're on 0.
roll
You're supposed to be on the ground.
Okay,
So
there you go.
yeah, no, you were supposed to be on the ground then. So yeah, I mean, I did appreciate in this system that I'm not, again, I like this game. I love this game and Empire about equally. Currently, obviously, this has got a lot more proving to do because we've only done one game.
Yeah.
But I can't help but compare it to Empire. So this game, what I did appreciate is that currently the combat rules mean that the only time you actually have to physically be on the ground is when you're at 0 hit points.
Yeah.
So there's no there's no like cleave or strike down or anything like that they have in Empire. So those 2 calls can put you on the ground without you being at 0. Whereas this game, I spent way less time on the ground, because the only time you're on the ground is when you're at 0.
On 0, yeah.
Which actually isn't true, because I spent a lot of time on the ground because I was at 0 a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say we end up on 0 quite a lot, actually.
Yeah. So there's one call called Crush, and it is a call that if you are wearing heavy armor and you take this call, you go to 0 instantly. And it sucked. Crush sucked.
Like the idea behind it is that it is crushing your metal armor in on itself, which is why if you're in heavy, you go down. I had this call, and I love calling this call because it is just that instant, like screw you, I'm going to take you straight out of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got crushed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Well,
lot.
I think we'll talk about that because I think it's definitely going to be a feedback email to Menhirs because Crush was good. I don't want to get rid of Crush, but I feel like Crush should be like a two-handed thing because it was a skill you could take.
Crush.
Yeah, so it's a skill you can take and it costs you experience points. But for crew, I think we'll go into more depth the next episode when we talk about all the combats that we did. A lot of the times the crew was outnumbered, so they balanced that by giving the crew like more hit points and more calls and things like that. But the problem was they gave, obviously a lot of them had Crush, which again I'm fine with. I like a challenge and it's cool role play. What wasn't, we'll probably talk about it more in depth because we are running out of time. But what wasn't cool as in like it's fine if they have the thing, it's cool to do it. But what wasn't fun was like if you're like a big heavy armor and someone with the dagger is just like Crush, and you're like. Really? I'm like, there was a point of this weekend I was on 12 hit points and I got crushed and took down to 0 by a sword, and I'm like, really? Okay, 0. That's fine. But yeah, so we did the thing. We killed the we killed them. Then we killed the witch.
Well, yeah, they got the witch eventually, I believe.
Yeah.
Speaking to the player of the witch later on in the weekend, I think the player did a lot to try and help people out there because I think that the witch really probably should have survived there. I think, but it was brand new LARP. It was pitch black. We couldn't see anything. But we were there to keep her alive, and we kept our person alive. Every
not
time,
the witch.
Not the witch, not the witch. The person we were bodyguarding. Yeah. And every time she was like, "I'm going to run to this one." No, you're not. You're going to stand behind my sword.
Yeah. No, that was fun time. So we had camp attacks because it was very close to camp, wasn't it? And that's why we were getting concerned. So the camp attacks, they weren't, because people say camp attacks when you're used to Empire, where there are none. And people worry, and they're like, "Oh yeah, but what if I'm like eating a sandwich?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I get attacked or whatever, or I'm having a picnic, or I'm just like sitting down and just taking my armor off. It wasn't really that. Again, it was very Eversley like. It was just like they're like, "Oh, by the way, like people would give you like a semi heads up."
They'd be like a heads up, like our nation support would feel something on the wind.
Yeah, the men here is speaking to me and be like, yeah.
Yeah, like we would all like move out of the main camp area.
Yeah.
But really, if you're sitting in your little camp area in your tent having a sandwich, nobody's gonna come hit you with a sword.
No, that didn't happen. Yeah, you're not gonna just be like, "Oh yeah, I've just got out my tent. I'm just having like an OC time. I've just got out my tent. I'm having a stretch. Gonna put my jacket on, and someone's gonna like come up and job you. That's not."
Not going to happen. They're not going to come into the actual like main camp areas as such. The idea of it was to, and that's the idea of all these like this space between all the camps is to get them out of the main actual camp area. And really, if you are wanting to go and do this LARP, and you're like, I'm a non-com, I don't want to have any kind of, I don't want to be involved in any kind of fighting at all. You can easily avoid it all weekend. There's nothing that's going to force you into that situation at all.
Yeah.
If anything, if you really want to be involved in the fighting, you're going to have to step out of your tent area to be involved in the fighting.
I think when we talk about Saturday, there's a bit more to talk about there.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll go over some of the things that happened, and nothing bad, but like just what I think they're aiming for, and what I think they can easily quite achieve.
Yeah.
With it, because there was a funny moment on the Saturday night. But yeah, what else happened on the
Well, I mean, like.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was mentioning the camp attacks because I was like, when we had the first camp attacks, everyone was really keen. They were almost too keen. So again, like I said, the camp is in like a big, like we're like wheel spokes, all the camps, and they wanted to attack every single camp, so everyone could have a go. But the problem was everyone was really keen on that Friday, and then when camps started attacking the bigger nations, so Cyridonia and Valdrafe were really keen. So when the skirmish crew were going around and then they were attacking like all the other camps, Ceridonia and Valdrafe were just like, "Rah, we're here," you know, and we're just like,
To,
go
like,
on.
to give like a visual of this, if you think of like Hunger Games, like the second Hunger Games, where they're on this field and it's like a big clock, basically, is how they set it up. But these sort of like things are happening in each section, but that section has to deal with these things as they come to it. That was the feeling I got each time, because you could be sitting in your camp area and you could hear something happening away on the other side. Now you can't physically get there in time, and you certainly can't like break through that to help anyone. Because by the time you get there, it would already be over and done with. That was the kind of like feeling I got with these camp attacks.
Eventually, on the Friday, literally everyone was
People were like running around
going from
to
one
all the
encounter.
nations.
Yeah, they were just going one encounter to the next and just following the skirmish crew around. I think just everyone was really keen. You know, everyone was just like, "Ah, we're in combat now." You know, because that was early on the Friday as well, the first camp attack.
Yeah,
and people were getting keen. But then by the Saturday, something was happening down in like Avro, Erdreven. You could hear screams, and everyone was just like, "Ah, no, you know, they're coping with it. If people need something, they can come up." So I guess, and there was time where like the Wonder had like a skirmish, and they were just like, "By the way, do not go and interfere with that because that's for them. It's not for us."
yeah, they literally came and said like, "Yeah, don't interfere with it."
There's a little bit of balancing that obviously that they're gonna have to just figure out, you know, with a larger game. Again, I feel like it is just like an Eversley game that's just been expanded, so that they're just gonna have to. I think they did really well because basically I feel like it was just them running like, you know, 8 Eversley games simultaneously. That's kind of what it felt like, you know, which is great. We love those Eversley games, but obviously that's one of the things where it's just like, how do we get Ceridonia, loads of people, Baldrake, loads of people, to not just come in and take, you know, Kairos's game that they do. Like, if we want to attack Kairos, how do we make sure that they get to have a fight and Ceridonia and Baldrake don't just come in and just wipe the enemy out before they do it? So that's things that needs to be workshopped. Is there anything else? Because we're definitely coming up to time, so.
No, I think that's like pretty much us for the Friday. We kind of like ended our Friday after that. We basically had our normal sort of like LARP evening where we kind of headed back to the camp, had a few drinks around the fire and everything. And we sat with the fire, didn't we? We ended up like going to quite late actually on the Friday, just like chatting to people who wanted to like pop by and stuff. And it definitely did. It gave that, you know, that Fest LARP sort of like vibe and everything at the end and stuff. So that was just that was our Friday.
Yeah, I mean, if we remember anything for Friday, we'll cover it in the next episode. But we think we've done enough for this episode. So yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We will be covering. I'm not entirely sure how many episodes this is going to be. Probably a couple. We've got a lot to say about Menhir's Fate. But yeah, tune in next time for part 2. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.